All right, we're live. Welcome to the IT Hour, y'all. It's Friday again. Yay. I can breathe a sigh of relief as we're glad to go into the weekend. We were just comparing weather. Josh, welcome back.
Thank you, Becky. Wonderful to be back. Great to see
Yeah,
you. Great
you
to be here with
too.
everyone today.
So we were just comparing weather because I think it is, well, let's see. Oh, it's 75 here. I lied. It is way too warm for November. And yeah, it's warm. And then poor Josh, if you look closely,
It is snowing. It's a snow globe here in Colorado. Some areas schools have already closed preventatively. I think we're only supposed to get here. I'm just in Boulder. We're only supposed to get about 6 inches, but I think other areas of Colorado may get more. It is starting to feel like winter here. It had been really warm, but it's yeah, the snow is falling. Getting ready for the winter and holiday seasons.
I would love to have it just a little bit cooler so I could, start pulling out my scarves and sweaters, but the South, just not quite yet. We'll go from we won't have a nice fall. We'll just go from hot to cold. That'll be.
Whoa, Jake's saying a foot or more in Denver. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I don't I grew up in the Midwest, so we had lots of snow and stuff and I don't miss it.
That's good. Yep, I had a lunch date with an old friend scheduled for today, and we were chatting last night and decided against it based on the forecast. He was saying that his kids were out of school, and they had already canceled schools in the area. He's outside of Golden. And so we decided maybe we'll reschedule for a different day.
Yeah, that was my least favorite thing was getting out and trying to go anywhere in the snow. I mean,
Yes.
staying at home and watching it fall and waking up to everything just all quiet and covered was wonderful. But yeah, it's the getting out and having to do stuff in it that I always hated. So
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
my kids are always hoping for snow because they're California kids. So born and raised there. So if we ever get a chance to snow here, they love it. But I'm like, yeah, it's different when you only experience it once in a while instead of your
Yep.
whole
Yep.
life. So yeah. And Rob, yeah, Rob's in the Midwest. So he's in Illinois. And yeah, the swing of temperatures
Wow.
is
Yep.
just so like it'll be super cold in the morning and you'll wear heavy jackets on your way out, and then by the afternoon you're like shedding all of, so you have to wear layers because you'll be shedding all of that by the afternoon. You'll be
40
sweating.
degree swing. Yeah, that Rob mentioned is huge. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. So definitely. Well, we are glad to be back here. Stuart says, "Oh yeah, if there's any little sprinkle of snow, huh? I know y'all are used to gloomy and rainy, but that snow is maybe not quite the same. It's the same thing here in the South. I mean, you any little bit of snow and people don't know how to drive. They don't know what to do, and it's a mess. A handful of snowplows and things like that, but not like back in the Midwest or in Colorado and stuff where they're equipped for that. We don't get it frequently enough to have all the equipment because where would you store it when it, maybe
Yep.
once or twice a year. They've got they can spray the streets and stuff like that, but they don't have all the salt and the great big snow plows and stuff. They've got a handful, but I swear that all the New Yorkers and all the people up north that move here, um, it's like when they've been here a really long time, it's like they forget what it's like to drive in the in the snow and stuff. Um, There's a really so Kelly's saying in see Portland, any snow and bad drivers here make national news. There's a really funny picture of us here, in the Raleigh area. There's this one hill, and we got some really, really bad weather several years ago. It's probably maybe not quite 10 years ago. And it got so bad that people got stuck and they were starting to slide around. And so you've got cars turned every which way. Some of them crashed into each other. One of them caught on fire. And it was
Wow.
so bad. I don't think I was living here at that time, but it's like it's like an apocalyptic picture, and it's hilarious. I mean, I feel no one got seriously injured, so you can laugh at it now, but if I can find it, all it's been turned into all kinds of memes and things since then. But yeah, it's pretty sad. There's lots of places where when you don't get it regularly, it's just all the craziness happens. So Rob saying an attack on Atlanta can be done just by dusting the roads with confectioner's sugar. Atlanta's um, one of the examples of, one of the worst because they shut down when that happens. Spot the baker, Stuart says, confectioner's sugar equals UK icing sugar. Yeah, I've heard those debates, but y'all have, a couple of different types of sugar. There's icing sugar, and then there's, like this there's super fine there's like 3 different types of sugar where we just have, like the regular sugar that we bake with and then confectioner's sugar, but then there's like a third one that's, kinda like in between, I think, if I recall correctly. Um, so it's interesting. And then Rob saying, "I think a meme was made of the Portland ice events where car after car kept sliding down a hill and piling up at the bottom, all put to tune of Running in the '90s." Ours was pretty close to that, Rob, except we had the additional one of a car literally catching on fire. So it was, and it wasn't even that big of a hill either. So, oh, and Kelly says, "Rob, that's the one. I think I saw a version with the yakety sax." That was the Benny Hill song. That would be funny. So, there we go. We could talk about, stupid winter games probably for a good part of the first part of the show. This is different, and we're talking weather this time instead of food and coffee and things like that. So, but I've got mine. I had to heat it up before the show because it looks funny because I added it looks weird, it looks sludgy, but I
Looks
have this.
chocolatey.
Well, yeah, I have this collagen supplement that I add, but there's a chocolate one you can buy at Costco and other places, and it makes it taste just like hot chocolate. So I
Ooh,
added
that's a
that
really
in.
good idea for today with the snow coming down. Maybe
Yeah.
this afternoon it'll be hot chocolate time.
Yeah, it's really good. So I just plopped some in there and added more milk and reheated it, and yum. So, yeah. Mm, that's it. Just like hot chocolate. Let's see. Stuart says icing sugar in many English speaking countries, particularly the UK, Australia, New Zealand, refers to what is commonly known as powdered sugar or confectioner sugar in the US and Canada. Yep. Finely ground sugar with soft powdery texture, icing, frosting, dusting, baked goods. Yes. Powdered sugar is normally what we call it, but I feel like there's another one. Granulated sugar is what we use in most stuff, and it's the normal thing. But
And
then
then
I
we
feel
have
like
what
there was.
I was gonna say, then we have the sugar in the raw, which is just as unbleached sugar, I think, and still has some,
Mhm.
I guess, molasses or something in it.
Yeah, it's before they pull the molasses out, and that's sometimes a little. It's not ground up as much, so it's a little bit bigger granules. I still feel like there's one in between granulated sugar and confectioners. Like it's super fine, so it's not. It's finer than granulated, but not as fine as confectioners. So I don't know. I don't know. I might be misremembering, but that's okay. Raw or demerara, is that how you say it, Kelly? Sugar is awesome. Less processed than white sugar. Yeah. Castor sugar, Stuart's saying, commonly available superfine. Um, Superfine or baker's sugar. Close match. Yeah, I think there are certain uses for it, but I'm not sure exactly what. And see, this is why baking in the UK and other places is superior to the US because they use baking by weight instead of by cups
Volume.
and things like that. So you don't overuse things and you get more consistent results. Over the pandemic, I started using weight by weight, and things like my cookies and things like that have turned out a lot more consistent because you don't have to worry about how much flour you have, like maybe getting the air out of it. Like if you pound it, like if you tap it, you'll get more flour in there than you do if you just lightly put it in there, or even if you sift it and things like that. So that makes all the difference. But if you do it by weight, it doesn't matter because you're going to get the same amount each time. So, yeah, Jonathan's saying metric. Yes, far superior. Um, so I definitely like it much better. All right. Welcome to the IT hour. Come for the patches, stay for the yes, stay for the info on sugar. And Rob's saying, also, I knew nothing about this many types of sugar. Well, just stay tuned. You'll keep learning. It's always something new on the IT hour. We switch it up each week. One week it's coffee. The next it's different types of soda. This time it's sugar. Stick to mass, as Charles says. That is the way to go. All right. Well, um, we are just going to go ahead and let Josh jump right into things and tell us about third-party Windows app catalog and patching. What do you have for us, Josh?
You
Oh,
bet.
and maybe we should back up a second and let you reintroduce yourself for anybody who's new to the IT Hour today.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Becky. My name is Josh Roland. I've been at Jump Cloud goodness, about 4 years now. Part of the product team focused mainly on devices. Um, and today we're going to be chatting about specifically software lifecycle management. Might want to delve into a little bit of OS patch management as well for your operating systems, but just wanted to fill you all in. I think last time we were chatting about software management as well. At that time, probably the private repository, perhaps, or maybe one of the Microsoft Store or Apple VPP stores. Anyway, we are continuing to make progress on that front, both in terms of being able to deploy your software and applications on your device fleets, but also keep them up to date and patch. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat with you all about, where we are in our journey, where we've come, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek of a really cool feature that is coming out potentially in the next week or two. So some exciting news there. So I guess probably the best thing to start with is kind of where we're going and why and what we're trying to do. Hopefully this will align with your all's hopes and dreams and thinking of what software lifecycle management is. But certainly if we're going off in a direction that you don't think is probably right, definitely give me a yell. We are on the product side and we get to pick which direction we go. Usually, sometimes, maybe. Anyway, what we're trying to do, and I'll kind of give you some of the background and why we're going this direction, but what we're trying to do is help you all manage all the tens of gazillions of applications that are out there. We know that there's a plethora of tools. Some folks are trying to do it manually, but there are a ton of apps that your end users use and need for their day-to-day jobs. And there's a lot to do to make sure that one, they have access to those apps are up to date, and aren't a security risk. And so, yeah, sometimes it's always a pain. You've got to either install those apps and help them with it, or making sure that they're up to date. Oftentimes, yeah. So, really, what we've been trying to do is provide the majority of those applications that you all use so that you can manage them through our platform. Where we started this journey many, many, many moons ago was a combination of self-hosted apps, meaning you could host your own apps. We also had the ability to use the Chocolatey repository. They have a community repository to use. Um, as well, we started working with the Apple VPP. We did an integration with the Apple VPP App Store. Um, More recently, and I'm going to slowly kind of work chronologically from the past toward where we are in the present. Then we worked on the Microsoft App Store, and that was really cool because it allows the ability to keep those apps updated. Meaning, when the Microsoft Store has a new version of the app, we will then push it if you've got those devices associated with those apps. We then did the same thing for the VPP store and then created the private repository, which is basically a S3 bucket that we tag with your name on it just for you. And you could put up to 10 gig of either an MSI if you're talking Windows or PKGs if you're talking Mac OS apps. And then again, what you can do is distribute those applications and those binaries on any associated devices. So where does that get us? Really, with the stores and with the private repo and Chocolatey, et cetera, what we found is about 40% of the applications that you all have been asking for, we can help manage. Not quite where we wanted to be. Again, our goal is to give you the ability to manage those applications, the majority of them. So here's what's coming soon, and I'll even give you a sneak peek in a minute. Um, what's coming soon is while the stores have lots of apps, they don't have all of the apps. So what's nice on the mobile side, usually the stores cover just about everything. But when we're talking desktop, there's a lot of holes. It's more of the Wild West when it comes to third-party apps. So what we're doing is we are creating a curated list of applications that Jump Cloud's going to curate. And what does that mean? It means that we're going to verify the binaries. We're going to check the certs. We're going to make sure that they're signed. And we're going to continually check to see when those apps are updated. And we're going to start building out that list so that we can fill those holes of applications that we don't currently offer so that you can manage those on your devices. So that being said, let me see if I can share a screen and get us all having some fun here. And I will show you what's about to come. It's kind of exciting. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yep, there it is.
Excellent. So we're going to go to software management. And if you recall, in the plus area, we talked about the private repo, Chocolatey, Microsoft Store. Again, we're in the Windows area. The new thing that'll be coming, and again, a sneak peek here, is the Jump Cloud App Catalog. And what we can do here is this first release that we're talking about is just kind of getting this in front of you all. And it's specifically 10 of the most used Windows applications. And what you'll see is once this comes out, we are going to be working fast and furious to increase that number beyond 10 into the hundreds, as well as to ensure that we have the parallel path on the Mac OS apps. And so what this provides, you can see, is here's the 10 apps that we'll be delivering potentially next week. So for example, if I want Adobe Acrobat, I can select that. We've got this cool new wizard that our awesome UX team put together. And so this helps streamline the process of figuring out which apps you want and working through them. So I pick Adobe Acrobat. I'm going to go next. I can keep it auto-updated. Ooh, that's kind of cool. So I do want to keep it updated. So anytime Adobe comes out with a new version, any of the devices, I want to make sure to get those new updates. And I'll walk you through what that looks like in a second. I could also add command line options if I wanted to install silently or do all kinds of fun things. If there's licensing information or keys, all kinds of cool stuff there. Next step, as many of you are familiar with, I can pick the devices. In this case, in my test setup, I only have one system that's online right now from a Windows standpoint, so I'll pick that one. Again, I can do groups, dynamic, static, however I want to decide to distribute this application. And then I've got a summary of what I'm doing. I can go back and edit any of those settings, and I'm going to hit save. And lo and behold, on that device, we now have Adobe Acrobat, and it shows up as a new app. And so a couple things, and let me go back here, and we can chat through what that looks like for your users.
Now,
So the cool,
Josh, Shane was asking, will these app lists stay consistent between cross-platform apps?
oh, so I'm assuming he's asking the difference between like for Mac OS versus Windows. And what we're looking to do is yes and maybe. So that is absolutely our goal to be able to do that. The piece that we want to make sure of is, again, at least early on, what we're really focused on doing is providing coverage for those apps. So there are some cases where you might have an app available, for example, Google Chrome in one of the stores, either the Apple VPP store or the Microsoft store. In which case, we might not have that early on in terms of as we're building out the apps. Again, our goal is to provide that coverage. So long term, absolutely, is to have all these apps available. However, short term, know that there might be gaps. Again, our goal is trying to figure out where those holes are that we don't have a solution today for you. And so
Great.
what this means is, again, you could use dynamic groups, static groups, single devices. It could be for a new employee being onboarded. You can have a list of all the apps that they need. Once that computer comes up, we will install all those apps. You'll have to excuse me if you hear barking. My wife is coming home and the dog is getting excited. So that being said, the other thing to know is one of the things that we're really trying to be cognizant of is your end user experience, right? So we hear all the horror stories of, oh, my CEO's on Zoom with a meeting with the board and there's an update. What happened? We don't want to have that Zoom meeting interrupted. So the way this works specifically for updates, what's kind of nice is for the initial install is it's happening behind the scenes because the app isn't there. Where this is interesting is on the updates. What we do is when we identify that there's an update for any specific app, is we provide a notification to that end user, just like we do for Chocolatey or other apps on Windows. And that end user gets a notification that says, hey, look, there is a new version of this app available. Would you like to install it now? And they have that option, and they will get that daily for 7 days. And upon 7 days, then we say, sorry, we've given you enough time to do it on your own. We're going to really help, and we'll just manually install it. But so we offer that grace period, again, just to provide that end user the ability to pick the install time that's convenient for them. And so that's, again, across all our apps, and we'll be making that available as well. So that's kind of what you'll be seeing, or kind of exactly what you'll be seeing in the next week or two. A couple things to talk about moving forward. One, obviously, we're going to be growing that list well beyond 10. That you'll be seeing very, very shortly after our first release. We'll then be circling back again for Mac OS. Once we get a good number of apps, really kind of a critical mass of those applications available to you, some of the things that we've heard loud and clear from you all, and that we'll be looking to do likely next year, so the 2025 timeframe, is to be able to take those applications and make them available directly to your end users. So again, this first piece is really all managed by the admin. The other piece that we're looking to do is basically have a self-serve or end user portal where you can decide which apps are available to which of your users or groups of users or devices, and they can self-select those apps. And then once they self-select, obviously they'll go through the same flow. You can say, keep this app always updated, don't, however you want to manage it, but it helps one, provide your end users the flexibility to choose the apps that they necessarily need. Um, and so that's looking like it's coming later next year. Otherwise, that is kind of the long and sweet story for where we're at in our journey for application management, what's coming imminently soon, and then what's coming down the road.
Yeah, I think you just answered uh, the question on screen here about users selecting which apps they want to install. So that is perfect as you were going through your list there. And then let's see, Stuart wants to know, will there be a PowerShell hitting users to install like Choco?
Oh, so good question. So behind the scenes, and I think this is what you're asking. Let me know if I'm going off into a tangent here. But the way we install these apps is we use the Microsoft application manager. And really what that is a tool called Winget, which is worked by and managed through Microsoft. And so what we're actually doing is we're making sure Winget is installed on all the devices beforehand. That's part of this whole thing. So your end users will not need to do anything. It will just be able to um, install those apps and again give them the notifications. Ooh, will it allow non-admin users to install these applications? That is a great question. So here is the kicker. And I'm gonna go into another side tangent about some other functionality and features that we'll be talking about soon and where and why. So from an admin standpoint, it's all done. We use our agent, which is on the device, with admin privileges. What that does mean, though, is we are always installing these applications at the system level context, not the user context. So you don't need a specific user logged in. Any that application will be available at the system level on that device for anybody that logs into that device. What you're getting at is really interesting, and that is, what about the user context? And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about, well, how do we do that? Because there's lots of applications that you want to install in the user context. That is definitely something that's coming soon. There is some really interesting work that another team is doing in the next few months with the notion of primary user. And what that allows for is, again, all of this work that we're doing right now, we're associating an application to a device. What we're missing is, what user do you want and needs to have that application on that device? And so that's where primary user comes into play. So again, over the next few months, you'll start seeing and hearing from us about the ability to set a specific primary user on a device. Once we get to that primary user, then you'll start seeing us thinking about and pushing the ability to not only install applications to the system context on a device, but to a user context. And instead of looking at a device, we'll be able to help you managing apps for your users, which will be, at least for me, so I'm super excited about that. Again, long-winded answer to admins versus non-admins. The answer to that question is, doesn't matter for this. They will be able to do it. It's just a matter of accepting the notification, and it's all being done in the system context by our Jump Cloud agent on the device.
So with
And so,
Jonathan's comment,
go ahead.
will the store remain blocked if you use the Jump Cloud store?
You have the option. Again, that would be a separate policy that you can set up. So again, totally up to you how you want to manage it. Some apps you want to do potentially from the Jump Cloud app catalog. Others you might want to do from the stores, etc. And we're leaving that completely up to you in terms of what makes sense for your organization to manage.
Okay, I've got some other things that were entered as questions. So, Sugati asked, can it have software list result that installs from Software Manager in the Device tab, the same as the Police Results tab?
I'm not sure I'm following that question.
Yeah, we might need some clarity in the chat here about what you were asking. So, software list result that installs from Software Manager in the Devices tab. The same as policy. results tab, I think. I think that's
Oh,
policy.
yes, we will have statuses, absolutely. So there'll be a status, you'll be able to see it. Some other so there's some, again, super exciting things. So one of the other things that, I'm not sure if we've chatted with you all about this, but we're working very hard on improving our reporting capabilities. And part of that reporting capabilities is giving you the ability to provide a report of all the applications and all the associated versions um, across all of your fleet. So that's coming. But will you see results like policy results? Yes, it won't show up as policy results. It'll show up as a status and results for that specific application. Behind the scenes, it does, like, under the hood for Jump Cloud, it is very, very similar. We do send commands, and we have results with a status that will let you know if that app was sent successfully and installed.
Okay. And let's see. Michael wanted to know I have 5 Jump Cloud managed chocolatey apps. What is the transition strategy to move them to Jump Cloud App Store? How does this affect the user? For example, will Jump Cloud take over the current Choco apps or do they have to be removed first?
Ah, brilliant question. So, what we'd recommend to do is, yes, they can be taken over, but you'll still need to remove them from Chocolatey. And so, the reason we say that is otherwise they'll be fighting over each other to update. Um, and we'll be sending the basically duplicate commands to manage those applications, one through Chocolatey. The same goes for, we again, the plethora of different options, whether it's the private repository, whether it's one of the stores, whether it's the app catalog. What we recommend doing is you can use any one of those, and I'd highly recommend one of those to manage a specific app or on a specific device. Obviously, there may be needs for some kind of combination depending on the device and the use case. Well, we'd again, once you set up the app catalog, it will take over. And what that specifically means is when we send the command to say, and we'll talk about Adobe Acrobat, because that was the example we used before. The first thing that happens is the agent on that device looks to see if Adobe Acrobat is installed. If it is installed, we then check to see the version. If the version is at or later than the version we show within the app catalog, we will not leave it alone and just call it successful. However, if the version is below or lower than the version of the latest that we have, and you've got the keep app updated checkbox checked, we will then update that application, which is really just sending that notification and giving that end user 7 days. So that's the behavior that the end user will see. Again, what our recommendation is to choose one of these paths again, so they don't end up trying to overwrite each other. Typically, it shouldn't cause any issues, but we don't really recommend it. Again, what we're trying to do is make it seamless so that we won't downgrade devices and we won't push things back and forth. But again, uh, um, it just makes things cleaner, and then you'll have a much better perspective of what the actual behavior is on the device, knowing that there's only one uh, uh, um, management tool that you're using.
Yeah,
The
one
other
source of
question.
truth. Right.
Exactly. There is probably an underlying question around chocolatey. There's been discussion that we've had at Jump Cloud about the idea of deprecating chocolatey, and when will that occur and how will that occur? So a couple things. One, a lot of folks use chocolatey. It's been a great tool for a lot of our customers. And so what we're looking to do is the app catalog will be quite a bit better in that it'll provide fully curated list. It's not community sourced. And we could all be more confident in terms of the security and viability and updating of those applications. That being said, we again do know that folks are using Chocolatey. So yes, we're still likely looking to deprecate Chocolatey. However, we won't do so until we've got coverage of those applications. We don't want to leave you high and dry for applications that you're currently using Chocolatey to manage if you don't have a solution within the app catalog.
Gotcha. Okay. And let's see. Mohammed wanted to know how about adding a custom attribute for a device and end user relationship to manage applications?
Oh, so I very possibly a custom attribute.
So does
Oh,
this
that's
sound like a
exactly so that's the
feature?
primary I think what you're asking, Mohammed, is about the primary user, and that's exactly what it is. And so what we then have is on a device, there'd be a primary user. So for example, well, we all know Becky probably has 37 different versions of Macs in our home and a couple Windows devices. And so what we could then do, and what we're talking about with primary user and installing it on the user context, is Becky would then be the primary user, or that custom attribute is I think what you're getting at, on all of those devices. And so instead of going out and finding all of Becky's devices to install Adobe Acrobat or Figma or whatever application she needs, what I can then do is assign the application to Becky. And what that does is it would distribute it to all the devices where she is the primary user. So that's the really exciting part that we're looking at. Again, not short term. We've got to get that primary user part figured out first, and you'll see that coming into our groups ability. So we'll have the attribute, then we'll be able to create groups uh, um, of devices based on primary user, and then we'll start looking at ways to kind of build that all together.
Great. Okay. And let's see. Stuart wants to know any further improvements to Microsoft Store option, like remove and more options to install other apps.
Yes and yes. Um, so to remove apps, absolutely. We're looking at the ability that, again, if you right now, when you disable or delete an application management within Jump Cloud, we do not remove it from that specific or targeted devices. We just leave it as unmanaged. So we are looking into the ability of having that when you do delete it, you can say leave it alone, leave it unmanaged, or remove it. So that is, or uninstall it. So that is an improvement that we're looking to do in the future. In terms of other apps, we do have some limitations in terms of the Microsoft Store. One being legacy apps, and another being, amazingly enough, devices in the with a user context. And again, that those two pieces, once we get primary user, that'll very much help us out. And the other piece is with Winget that allows us to install other packages that we hadn't been able to install from Microsoft Store in the past because we're using specifically the MDM channel. So yes, both of those are improvements that we're looking to unlock in the future.
Very nice. Oh, and Mohammed's follow-up comment was, "Yep, that's what I mean." So
Yep, yep, and
perfect.
that's that primary user. You're exactly right. That's something that we've always wanted to do. Is when we're installing apps, is yes, the ability to both install and manage applications to a device is a great start, but we all know that it's not the device that uses the app, it's the end user, and we're assigning these applications and permissions and access for your end users. And so trying to bridge that gap is something that we're very excited to bring forward, although we've got some work on our end.
Mhm. All right, and there was one more from Tad. Will you be recommending command options for silent installs so we don't have to research each?
Ooh, great question. So again, yep, you saw the command options in there. We are debating, like, do we do it all silently? Do we not? So here is the kicker. Each app has slightly different requirements. And so as we look at what we'll be providing, and I wish I can say, yeah, these are the specific commands that work for these apps. Um, Early on, we'll might provide some documentation around that, but as the app list grows, what we'll be doing is having a table, and you'll see it in our documentation that gets released, that shows you all the apps that we have and the specific package IDs that we're using. So while we won't tell you all the commands available for each of those, we will provide you the information that you can go look it up. So you will have to research them, but we will hopefully make that a bit easier by providing you exactly where we're getting it from, which is the Winget manifest and the specific package ID, so that you could then go look up to see which commands and arguments are associated.
Yeah, because that could change, each time they update their
That's
software and stuff,
exactly
so
that's exactly right. Yep.
that'd be really
Yep.
tough.
Yep.
All right. But really good question, Tad. And then, oh, another one came in. So let's see. If we apply block Microsoft Store policy, then can we still use the store in the software manager?
Ooh, that's
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to play with that one. Yeah, let me get back with you on that one. I have not I see what you're getting at. So the end user doesn't have access to the store, but can we still send updates and installs via MDM from an admin perspective? I will have to, yeah, get back with you on that. It's a great question.
All right. Making Josh think about things. That's really good. Let's see. Did I miss any of your questions in there? Let me go back and double check.
Ooh, I've got one more request for you all while you're checking on that, Becky.
Mhm.
So as I said, is that we you saw a sneak peek of the first 10 apps, and that will be expanding that list. That list is we're looking to do, a handful of apps probably every week to grow that list. Please, 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 if there are specific apps that you would like to see earlier in our release schedule, let us know. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of when we push different apps. Our goal is just to start building that out. So let us know which apps you want, and we'll make sure to get them on the list.
Okay. Jonathan saying silent install and no reboot should tick boxes separate from the other flags. Those are the most common flags I use.
Yep.
So I have the feature request link below us there. If you see that green button that says submit that feature request, would you like them to submit that way
That would
or
be
is
awesome. Yeah,
okay?
fantastic. Fantastic.
All right. And are there any early access or betas for this coming up or
Ooh, good question. The answer is no, because we're about to go live in like a week or two. I will say us lucky folks inside Jump Cloud have gotten to play with it for a little while. What we want to do is make sure this all worked before we got it to you. And once we have that confidence, which we do now, we're gonna let everybody have all the fun that is within these being able to manage, deploy, and update these 10 apps.
and Stephen
When is this going to be
yeah.
available? Good question. Potentially as early as next week, maybe the week after. We're in final testing right now. Again, that's why I'm playing my cards carefully, so we say. So far, everything looks awesome, and if it continues on that path, you'll see it late next week. If we do run into something, we don't want to send out something that might have an issue for you all, which might delay us. But right now, everything is looking really, really good. Ooh, great question. What plan will this be included in? If you have device management today, any type of device management, you will have access to the Jump Cloud app catalog.
Awesome. And then we've got another question that just popped in. How can we send the list of applications we need to be added? And I think we
Feature
just,
request is
yeah,
perfect. Yep, you got it.
yep. All right.
And
Sending those
as
feature
well,
requests.
please let me know which operating system you want it for. If it's for both, meaning Mac OS and Windows, please denote that. But if it's for one or the other, denote that as well. That'll help us in terms of, again, we're starting off with the Windows side, then we'll be circling back to the Mac OS side, uh, um, and we'll go from there. No Linux. Sorry, folks. You all might know me as the Linux guy at Jump Cloud as well. We are not looking right now to push out an app catalog for Linux apps. I can talk about some of the reasons why. A lot of it has to do with use cases, and imaging is the predominant use for Linux. On top of that, y'all know about how many different package managers are across different Linux distros, and that is an area that we're not quite sure we want to unpack at this point in time.
Yeah. Just too many different ways to come at that and too many different distros and just, yeah, it would be a nightmare to support is what I'm assuming at this
Yes,
moment.
yes, and there are other areas that we can chat about in the future. In terms of using commands on Linux and other ways to distribute apps, again, using images, more than happy to help you kind of work depending on your requirements to help you put together some type of automation and orchestration there.
Oh, awesome. All right. I think the questions have slowed down, but I put that feature request link in the chat as well as it is still here under our faces. Just look down below for that green button that says submit that feature request. Um, so Rob is saying Linux already has APT and Bash, just saying. Us Mac
Yep,
admins,
that's
though,
true.
really need a bone or two. I'd even take one of those Nylabone fake ones at this point.
Yes, we very much hear you. And Mac OS is certainly coming for the app catalog, but it's we wanted to give you this piece first because this is what we had available, and then we'll be working on the Mac OS side.
Yeah, now you can't see the rest of Rob's comment on screen where I've posted it, but it says Apple hasn't murdered the horse. They just learned necromancy so they could keep beating it. Right.
Wonderful.
Always comes up with the best comments.
Yep.
Steven says, if you use Linux, you can manage your own packages. True, true, but please for Ubuntu. I know we hear you. We hear you.
Yep, and that's we the again APT is brilliant for Ubuntu, uh, um, but yeah, we can probably help with using commands to do that in the near term. Um, it's just we've got multiple different distros and different apps and lots of great community discussions about different package managers and which ones to use and why, especially as you go into different distributions.
Yep. Got another one popping up here. Is it possible to have Okta groups sync with Jump Cloud groups as it pertains to application access and deployment?
Ooh,
Hmm.
I don't know. That's a great question for Trevor or somebody in the directory team for the group sync. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to get back to you on that, Matthew. I think it depends on which way you have things pushing. Like, are you pushing from Okta or from Jump Cloud and things like that? So, yeah, let's see if we can find out. Might have to have you post that on the community so then we can post a public answer. But yeah, let's put a pin in that and then we'll come back to you. Let's see. What do we have here? Oh, Rob saying this is 2024. Stephen, what makes you think you have rights on your devices you own? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Matthew's saying from Okta to Jump
Okay.
Cloud. Yeah, I think that that
Yeah, I'd
might
have to check in
be.
terms of that integration if we pull the group structure. If we do, then absolutely. I've got to check again. Trevor, or somebody in the directory side might be able to help in terms of understanding if we can pull those group structures in.
Yeah, I think it really depends on your setup, on how you're doing that. And then for Mac OS, can it have Homebrew too? Some library for dev tools.
Feature request.
Yep. Another feature request. Get those in there. Because that'll help. And for those of you that are seeing these messages in here and going, ooh, that sounds like a good idea, add a feature request of your own too, because the more we get for the same thing, the more we know that, oh, more than one person
People want it.
wants this.
Yep.
That's how it works. All right. Well, we've got a little. Everyone add a feature request for feature request voting. Okay, so look,
Brilliant.
we have talked about trying to get that one of these days where we either have something that we put the top things out there and let people vote or have some sort of visibility. But hey, yeah, go ahead and put that in as a feature request. We want to see other people's features so we can vote on them because we realize that right now you can't see what other people are putting in. So go ahead and do that, because that will help, the higher ups know that, hey, this is important. We have some
And
capabilities to do that, but they need to know that that's something y'all want so that my team can help enable that.
and so y'all know, all of your feature requests when they come in, get the eyes of myself or from somebody on the product team to review. And what we do is we actually group them together. So where it'd be great to have that voting, that's a little bit easier. Right now, know that if we see multiple requests for the same thing, we will bundle them together. And then with that, again, to Becky's point, helps us do is go, holy cow, there's a lot of people that would love to see this. Let's see how we can get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. That means that, hey, this is something important to our customers because we've got multiple people requesting it, not just one or two. So it's going to bubble up. And the other thing with that voting, um, what I am hoping to see down the road is commenting as well, because then, you can add on to someone else's and say, oh, I really like that. And here's how I would use that, or here's my use case that kind of goes along with that. So rather than the product team having to merge all of these, there's one that people can then just add their own piece to it. Um, and people voting on it so they can just vote and then add their comments on it and things like that. Yeah. I know Sam did this. I gotta throw that up there. Put in a feature request to add an option to the feature request, upvote feature requests so you can help prioritize feature requests that they work on. And Rob said, I do appreciate the way Sam thinks.
A feature
So,
request for a feature request.
yes, to vote on the feature requests. To help us prioritize. That's the way it goes. Um, so we've only got 5 minutes, but there were a couple of interesting headlines. There was a worldwide operation through Interpol where they took down 22,000 malicious IP addresses worldwide. It was called Operation Synergia 2. Um,
22,000. Wow.
yeah. Yeah, so beginning of April through the end of August, they arrested 41 people. They took down 1,037 servers and other infrastructure running on 22,000 IP addresses. And it took multiple law enforcement agencies across the world as well as 3 cybersecurity orgs. So, yeah, they had stuff going on in Hong Kong, Mongolia, Macau, Madagascar, and Estonia. So they were seizing things all over the place. Also, there was a suspect arrested in the Snowflake data theft attacks that affected quite a few people. You may recall that there was the Ticketmaster um,
Mm, yes.
breach, but there was more than that. So that data had been stored on Snowflake, and it turns out that there were 165 Snowflake customers that had been affected, and there was data stolen. Mandiant, the security firm that Snowflake had retained to investigate, went on to say that the compromises it had tracked um, had been stolen via malware. None of the affected accounts used multi-factor authentication. I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second.
And I wonder
So,
if they used complex passwords.
well, after that revelation, Snowflake enforced mandatory MFA for accounts and required that passwords be at least 14 characters long.
There you go.
So, ooh. Uh, oh, and guess what? Apple is finally letting green bubbles react to messages and they'll show up the right way on the bubble. Exciting news. Sorry, I couldn't resist putting that one in there. So, when Android
Let me guess,
users
Apple did that because there was a feature request that got upvoted.
yes, yes, indeed. So they're finally, complying with RCS, messages and doing it the right way. Finally. Kelly, finally good news on the IT hour, right? They're still gonna be green, but at least, it's gonna show up properly. Um, if you are running, Cisco ultra reliable wireless backhaul URWB access points, there has been a maximum SEV vulnerability. They have fixed
Ooh,
it, but if you're running any of those unified industrial wireless software web based management interface, you should look for CVE 2024 20418 because that has been exploited and it's a pretty high severity. Um, and it looks like there were some other attacks a few months ago. Cisco, Palo Alto, and Ivanti network edge devices were compromised. So there are some other CVEs involved in those too. I will put those on the community, but just keep watching for things like that if you're using any of those. Um, and CISA has a few more advisories in this past week. Let's see, there's about 6 more known exploited vulnerabilities and 3 industrial control systems advisories. So go take a look at those. And then the U.S. Consumer Protection Agency has banned employee mobile calls amid Chinese hack fears. And they've issued an urgent directive barring employees and contractors from using mobile phones for work-related calls following a major breach in U.S. telecommunications infrastructure attributed
interesting.
to Chinese linked hackers. So there was an internal memo from the CFPB's CIO advising staff to move sensitive discussions to secure platforms like Teams and WebEx, and they sent a
Hmm.
memo to employees and contractors. Um, they say there's no evidence that they've been targeted by unauthorized access, but they're asking for compliance to reduce risk. So, wow. Industrial control systems, Rob saying industrial control systems ever moving away from MS-DOS was the worst thing ever. Uh, But yeah, there's a lot going on, and that's not even half of the news that I read through to pull things. There's so much going on. I think I need to just make a list of all the ones I see and just put those in the maybe in the security forum just to keep a running list. Um I'm not sure what Paul's still insecure though. I'm not sure which one because there were so many of them, or maybe it was just the text messages. Could be. All right. We are at the mark to say goodbye. Josh, thank you for that wonderful information. Great stuff. And thanks, y'all, for all the great questions. Lots of great stuff. Let's
Yeah,
see.
thank you all for having me today. Really appreciate your time. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, try to stay warm. I see that snow is still coming
Yep.
down back there.
slowly accumulating. Time for that hot chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, take care, everyone, and we will see you next week. We are going to have a special guest, and we are saying goodbye to a very good friend. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week. Take care, all. Bye.